Okay, welcome again. We are back, and we have so many questions to this lady. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's morning, and we took our daughter to the bus, and our other one is having breakfast, and it's a bit chilly outside this morning.
It's May 2nd.
It's May 2nd, 2023.
Meaning we have the fourth day is the results for the diversity visa lottery will be
so
out.
Stay hopeful. Stay
Yes.
hopeful.
Okay. One of the questions I receive from many people is about the cost of living in America. And there are so many factors.
Okay.
But
That's true.
sometimes where you live has an impact to it. You were raised in California,
I was born and raised in Southern California.
which is expensive area.
Yes.
Can you
and
talk
there's-
about California and the nature of being expensive and what makes California expensive in your experience?
Okay, so there's Northern and Southern California, and there's even like the middle. So the big cities are expensive, and then some of the smaller cities that have really fancy houses are expensive. You can look up Montecito, Montecito. It's near Santa Barbara, California, and it's still considered Southern California, and that's where a lot of people who are famous or have a lot of money, they live there. Some of them live in Malibu or Ojai.
Westlake.
Not
No,
really
Westlake,
Westlake,
no.
But anyway, so California in general, the biggest part about California is that you're paying for land, and then you pay for the house because you're in California. But if you think of California, what do you think of? That's the point. You think of all these things.
Hollywood. Think about the nice beach.
Or beaches, or they have mountains, or the deserts, or we have all
there's
the
Apple company, even if you are not going there.
right,
whatever.
Silicon Valley. But there's all sorts of things. We have all the climates in California. So if you go there, whether you live there, rent there, or even visit, you're still paying more than you would in other places. It's the same for New York City or major places in Florida or Chicago or whatever, those are the things. So anyway, we left. I had been there for my whole life basically. I moved around a little bit here and there, but because it was just too expensive. It was way too expensive, and you have to have a lot of money. And even people that have a job where they're making $17, $18, $19, $20 an hour, $25 an hour, $30 an hour, and I know that might sound like a lot to some of you who live in countries where our US dollar is more than your currency, but doesn't even, I mean, you probably can't even
Because
you can't even get an apartment because apartments are $2,000 and $3,000 for one bedroom, or even not one bedroom, maybe just like what we call a studio, which is a completely open space except for the bathroom. And even that you might not be able to find depending on where you live. And it's not smart to live in heavy crime areas. And you can look up the crime areas. Just go into Google. It may be cheaper, but do you want bullets going through your wall or your window? So that's why it's to your advantage to find somewhere before you if you get here, before you get here, or after, but to your advantage to really research where you're going to live. And you also need to know the climate, because can you handle cold? Can you handle extreme heat? Are you all right with earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes? There's lots of things, and you need to be aware. I know that many people say, as long as I get the DV lottery, as long as I win, I'm good to go. But also you need to really research before you get here, or you will be very surprised and maybe disappointed.
Yeah, you mentioned the point about to do a research, but sometimes people who win sometimes don't have much of the option because, oh, I know so and so is in New York, but you do not know the living situation of New York.
Right.
It's good to do a research, and I usually tell people sometimes we depend on who is your host. But
Right.
the place where you go to stay at the beginning can determine how your success might be
Right.
in one way or another. So even if you have the one person agreed to be your host, maybe in particular area, it's not bad to look for other people in other
Right.
states after doing your research.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that there's this urgency once you win the DV lottery and then they call you and you do the interview, you have to come here at a certain point. You want to
Yes, and
expound
another
on
thing
that?
is this one. I want to mention on that. Even if your host, let's say EBM, is your host, I'm giving an example, but you don't come to
can't
live
do,
here.
but-
Yeah, you can go and live in another place. So yes, you can put someone as your host, you agree to be your host, but if you get another person, even if you have done the interview, but you can come in America and go to live in another state,
Once
to
you're
another
here,
address.
it
Yeah.
doesn't matter
They
because you're
don't.
legal.
Yeah, you are legal. They're not going to confine you. You must live in this particular address.
Exactly.
So that is something you need to know, that don't confine yourself if you have other options. I've advised someone was in one part of New York, was paying like it was a studio for $2,200, just a simple studio. I said, why can't you find jobs? It was Chewy, it's Chewy, whatever, but got the job in Iowa for $22. Left New York, went to Iowa. The guy was from West Africa. So
Right.
sometimes you
It's
have
cold, but you get cheaper rent, and it can be a lot less crime. And so when we talk about New York, everybody thinks New York City, but that's an extremely small part of the entire state of New York. And I know that my husband, EBM, has spoken about how large the United States is, but try to think of it as
continent.
50 different countries in one large country.
Yeah.
All right, so we can freely move those 50 countries, and we also have territories and etc. But the point is, the mainland is 48 states plus Alaska and Hawaii, which is quite far from the West Coast.
I've never seen any person
Yeah,
winning
it's-
green card going to Alaska.
And
They pay a
Alaska's-
lot, but it's very expensive.
Yes, Alaska is near Russia. So it's 48 contiguous states that you can think of as 48 individual countries, even though we're a big union. So the United States is very, very big. And you can't go from one state to another if you travel 3 hours, unless you're really close to the state line of one state and another. Now we live about 30 minutes from the state line between Missouri and Kansas. So we go into Kansas quite often, and people from Kansas come over to Missouri. If you live this close, but it's so massive here that you can't just go from one place to another that easily. We all speak American English and we have accents, and you don't have to show, pardon me, sorry. I'm supposed to be taking our youngest to story time at the library. Anyway, so you have to think about that too, that when you land here and you stay in one state, it costs a lot of money to get on a plane and go somewhere else, but the same because our gasoline is expensive. Now, we think our gasoline is expensive, but I know that Canada and all these other countries, the liters of petrol are very expensive, but to us, it's very expensive too. So, really, I really encourage everyone to do research and really see what each state has to offer and look up the price of living and ask and get second, third, fourth opinions on things. Don't just go with that first one that says, oh yes, this is the best place ever and you'll love it forever. That's one person.
Yeah, another thing with that, because rent is bigger part of the big portion of what we talk about being expensive, but there are other things. For us, we lived in California.
Right.
Then we moved to Kansas, then we live now in Missouri. And we saw the difference between Kansas and Missouri. Buying the home, apartment will be different, whatever. But if you tell someone like rent-wise, buying the house-wise, between California versus Kansas, Missouri, or Midwest, in terms of that. Because sometimes we say, oh, I'm from Africa, I don't want to know. So, but are you able to pay $1 million to buy a house versus to come to live in a snow state and
That's
pay
exactly right.
200,000,
Right.
kind of that. So can you explain your experience with that?
So it's common knowledge that Midwest states are not as expensive as California, New York, like major cities. For example, major cities. Here's the thing. There are major cities in Midwest states, and they can be expensive too. So you have to watch for that. And certain neighborhoods are more expensive than others. And that's, again, research and, checking out websites and asking people, and that's research. So in California, it would have been $2,500, $2,500 American, for my husband and I and our children to have a 1-bedroom apartment. And that didn't include trash, water, electricity, gas, internet. Then we had to go get food, and food prices are quite high right now with the inflation, and a lot of places don't have public transportation. Even if they have public transportation, you have to pay. So then if you need a car, and Uber and Lyft, as I said in another video, are quite expensive. But here's the thing. If you can find a place, like for example, when we came here, when we lived in an apartment in Kansas, the apartments actually that my husband found were older apartments, but they still were okay. They were built in the 1980s, and we were able to pay about $1,300, $1,300.
Including with utilities, was
with utilities
for 3 bedrooms.
For 3 bedrooms, which and they did have a refrigerator. Not all rental places, apartments have refrigerators. You have to be aware. And then there's also so we were able to get it for about $1,300, including utilities. But that was not where we were ultimately staying, because we don't like having neighbors that can hear us across the next wall. And actually, when we searched and looked and researched and spoke to many realtors who helped find houses, we finally found a house that was less than our rental, our apartment. If it's a mortgage, and so the positive side of it is that my husband, EBM, was in the military in the United States. And when you're in the military in the United States, you have what's called a VA loan. It's a veteran's loan, which means when you buy a house, you don't have to put any money down to buy the house. I mean, there will be costs, but usually you're paying $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to put down on the house, like a prepayment sort of. And it all depends where you live.
Yes.
Some places, like, for example, let me give you an example. My father's family is from a very small 1,500 people town in Montana. Because so many people are going to Montana, the homes which used to be less than $100,000 are near and over $500,000. I never thought I'd see the day. This town it's so small, and they have one school that goes through all the grades, and there's one main street. They have one stoplight. I mean, it's very small, but because there's so many people that are going there, this little tiny town has very expensive places to live. So that also gives you an understanding of the life as well.
Okay, so apart from the rental, is cost of living making to be high, like, because that is the big part of your paycheck goes there.
Right.
There is the issue about food, clothing, whatever. So sometimes where we live, or tendency of, especially I can give you the example of Tanzania, sometimes when it is holiday like Christmas, whatever this one is, when things go high. Instead of having sales, things go high. The price of chicken go high. The price of clothing go high, because that is the time they know you must buy.
Right.
But here we have a lot of deals going here and there. How do you go around with your experience?
So here in the United States, we have a culture that, the way that shops, stores are, Amazon, all of these things, where Americans need to, it's a psychological fact. They've done many studies on this. Americans need to see the word sale, on sale, S-A-L-E, sale. Everything's for sale, but Americans need to see for sale, like that these things are lower prices.
Even if it is $1 go down.
It doesn't matter. I mean, I've seen tickets where it's 20 cents less, but that's a big deal, and people are taken in by these things. So it's just, I know one company, it was a clothing store, a big clothing store. They tried to stop having sales. They tried to have their lowest prices, and Americans didn't know what to do. They were, because they couldn't get a deal. They couldn't get, something for a lot less than they're used to paying. And the idea for the company caused them to have to switch back over, because people in America didn't know what to do. They really need sales. Can I show them?
Yes.
So here is a typical ad that comes in the mail. We call them, what do we call it? The circulars, but okay. So this is a small one. This is for Aldi, which is a German company. They don't really have sales. This is one of the few places where their prices are so low they rarely have a sale on anything, but their prices are very low. I highly recommend shopping at Aldi. There's another place called Lidl. It's very much like that. All of our stores are completely different from one another. That's something you also need to know. We rarely have people standing on the sides of the road selling things. You will see it, but it's usually rare, and it has to be in season fruit or vegetables, and then they tend to be more expensive. And farmers markets are very expensive. You say, oh, I get fresh food from these farmers markets. It's more expensive. So there are places that are more expensive, and these grocery stores, we call them supermarkets or grocery stores, they're going to be more expensive than your other chain stores that are larger, such as Walmart or Target. These stores have lower prices because they're so massive. So, for example, you will get, let me see if I can find something here.
Oh, like a bottle of water from 7-Eleven versus a bottle of water from Walmart.
So the markup from somewhere like Walmart to a regular grocery store would be $1 to $2 more on everything. And especially, I was thinking about this after I made that last video, toiletries, what we call toiletries, toothbrushes, toothpaste, deodorant, hair, anything you do with your hair, soaps, anything. It's much more expensive to buy them at grocery stores. You're going to get much better prices at Walmart, Target, things like that. And so you want another research, please. Walmart has low prices and they have sales. They don't really, and Target, they're lower prices too. Walmart usually beats out Target, but and what you can do if you're going to one of the supermarkets or grocery stores that's not Walmart or Target or Aldi, so you can find coupons. Here, let me give you an example. So this is from our local supermarket. It's Hy-Vee. It's hard to see, but Hy-Vee. So they have this monthly circular that has these coupons. See the dotted line? How it's out here like this?
$2 off.
So now here's the thing. Even with this $2 off, you have to see if that's really a good price. Because Walmart could be selling it for less than that as their regular price. But these are still good to have. So what I really like is each week they've been doing this where they have very low prices on certain items. So these are great. So a can of beans is $1. Now that will trick you here in the United States.
Yeah, 99 cents.
Everything that ends in a 9, everything ends in a 99 cents. And if you see 99 cents,
that's what I say. $1.99.
$1.99. This is $2. Yeah, because here in America, again, the psychology of it is when we see $1.99, we don't think $2.
So it's
We
just
think,
$1.
oh, it's just $1. No, it's $2, $1.99. And most states have tax. So you don't ever pay just $1.99. You're going to pay more, sometimes upwards. Here we have 10%, so it's a 10% tax. So that's another 20 cents, right?
Yeah.
So very few states have no tax, but then you end up paying it in other ways. So and also
And I want to add something on that one.
Okay.
This one, we don't go to do shopping every single day. So you take your
can't.
circulars, you take everything, you plan.
You
like
write
how many
down.
I'm going to buy.
Yes.
You can buy things
Make
for a
a
week,
list.
for 2 weeks.
Right. That's
And
one
sometimes
thing.
you can buy something for next
Next
toilet
month.
papers, for instance. You know you'll use them.
Right.
So you can buy them in advance if they're in a
Exactly.
very good deal.
Yes. So here's the thing. Exactly. I said this in the other video, but almost all Americans have refrigerators and freezers. And I know that might be hard to get used to, especially if you're getting your meat every single day, fresh. But it's not very...
Wise.
Well, you'll be paying a lot of money if
Yeah.
you buy every day, your meat every single day, because most butchers are not putting out fresh meat every single day. The meat, when they package it, it lasts for about a week, and then if you freeze it, it will last longer. So there's that. If you ever see any type of meat, fish in a package and it's ballooned up, how else do I explain it?
It's just like there is
Extra space in the
especially
package,
with air, like
like a
inside
lot
there's
of air, that means that bacteria is growing. You don't want that food. You will get very sick. So a lot of Americans don't know that either, but it's very important. So
another part of saving or just cost of using whatever
Right.
is about buying especially clothing, especially when we live in the
That's a
states
very
where
good
there is winter, there
idea.
is summer, there is fall, there is all these kind of
right.
things.
So
So
again,
talk about first of all, like when one season ends and there's another, and all other tricks you use to get certain things, clothing on deals.
okay. Except for very few places in the United States, we have a summer and winter of some type. Not everywhere has super cold, but even in Southern California where I grew up, it got colder than it was in the summer. So in the summer it's 100 degrees, and in the winter it's 50 or 40 degrees. So
Fahrenheit. You have
Oh, Fahrenheit. So sorry for all of you that use Celsius
Yeah,
or
so not
centigrade.
100 degrees Celsius.
Sorry. Fahrenheit. Sorry. Yeah, that would be terrible. So anyway, and so we all have to dress differently. Especially if you're coming from Africa, you will be cold because you have to get used to the colder temperatures. I know when we moved to Kansas from Southern California, even I was so cold in the winter because I had not grown up with it being so cold. It was so cold. So
So, for instance, like now
Layers.
the winter is ending.
The winter's ending. So here's the thing, and Ernest is explaining this, or saying that I should explain this. Most clothing stores have either gotten rid of or already or are getting rid of their winter clothing, which means they put it on a lower price on sale. Sometimes you'll see the word
For
clear.
instance, like I don't want to, like,
I
I want to show my hoodie.
This is a hoodie.
Is
Yeah.
you find out it is about like $30.
It's usually $30, but then they sell it for 20, 12, 15, 12, whatever. They're trying to move out the past season's clothes. So you'll even see the word clearance. Be careful, because it doesn't always mean you're getting a good price. They could just be saying that. But I saw $80 coats for $20 the other day. So it doesn't matter if you're wearing last season's clothes, 2 seasons ago. Nobody cares. You're not on a catwalk. You're not a model. It does not matter. So when one season is ending, you can usually get the clothes for next year. Say your child right now is wearing 4T, 5T. I'm just waving at my neighbor. So you can plan on getting 6 or 7 for the next year. And if your siblings, if the siblings in your family, like you have 3, 4, 5 children, everybody can pass down the clothes. We do it here. Even Benedict's clothing went to Claire and Faustina, because some things it doesn't matter if they look like they're boy, they're little kids, it doesn't matter. So, and also be aware that some of the clothing is just totally inappropriate, like completely inappropriate. Some of the t-shirts for our children have adult designs that, or words, or bands, music bands. Don't let your children wear those things. It's you know. Also, for example, I just want to mention this. Sometimes companies do not make appropriate clothes for our young girls, and they are very, very thin clothing, or there's less clothing, very short. And we buy a lot of boys' clothing for our girls in the summertime, because the boys' clothing has longer shorts and more fabric for the t-shirts, and it doesn't look like we are sexualizing our young little girls, because that's definitely not something we don't want to do. So that's a good thing to do. Plan ahead. Say, I'm going to buy some clothes that are on clearance, if you have the money for that. This year, I'm going to put them in a plastic tub so that no bugs get them, and I'm going to save them for next year, and then you will have already your clothes for next year, or some of them, and then you don't have to buy them at full price. I will say that some places will give you pretty good sales on things if you pay attention and you look during the season that you're in. That's why it's important to go online, look at the prices, see. And I will tell you, and this is another thing I really wanted to mention, and I thought about it with the other video. Walmart and Target are 2 places that their prices on young children's clothing is actually quite good, even if you have to pay full price for it. And your children aren't wearing these like as adults. Maybe I keep this shirt for 5 years, or if it's really good, 10 years. So, but children, even if you're passing it down, even if it lasts 3, 4 years, or even if it, for some reason, it doesn't. But here's the thing. You can get t-shirts or trousers, pants, whatever, for a lower price at Walmart and Target, and it's still quality. So always pay attention and research prices.